Hello everyone, back tuning into today's second video. Going to have a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days for today's second video. That's going to take us to around the 27th of the month. We'll be able to extend out beyond that with the extended GFS and ECM ensemble, so that'll run us into the first week of June. Now, I just released JMA Friday. That's your month-end look ahead with the Japanese and CFS V2 models. CFS is really going to town with high pressure dominated dry and hot weather starting as early as around a week's time and just carrying on through the final week of May and into the first 2 weeks of June, going really sort of over the top with the high pressure and hot dry weather. Very little sign of that within the model output I'm going to show you in a moment. So we're asking whether the CFS has lost the plot a little bit on that idea. But have a look at the video. It's an interesting watch to see what the CFS is going for today. Right, we'll get on with the video then. I'm going to start off with the upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles for the next couple of weeks. So the red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average. Looking at London today, so just quite close to average really through the next week to 10 days. Dates are along the bottom of the chart. You'll see how these different coloured lines, which are each individual members of the GFS ensembles, just stick very close to that red line, maybe a little bit above average at times through next week, but nothing overly sort of unsettled. But as we get into the final days of the month and just to the start of June, it does look as though we might have a little bit of a cooling trend actually. So if anything, the GFS ensembles might be going a bit cooler as we look towards the end of May. And precipitation wise, looks unsettled too. So there's going to be quite a bit of dry weather over the next couple of days. Not completely dry, there'll be showers around. But a fair amount of dry weather. But as we go through into next week, it turns more and more unsettled. That's around the bank holiday weekend, looking very unsettled then. And these unsettled conditions look like they stay with us through the final days of May and even into the start of June. Plenty of precipitation spikes showing up there. Temperature anomalies on the 17th to the 25th of May, very close to average, not a big deviation. You could possibly say that northern parts of the country slightly on the milder than average side, southern parts of the country slightly on the cooler than average side, but again, it's a very close to average, really, not a big deviation either way for temperatures. For precipitation anomalies, again, very close to average, not a huge amount going on, you have to say, from a temperature and precipitation perspective, other than just sticking quite close to long-term averages. This is how the GFS operational 6 o'clock run is looking for Monday. So very weak pressure gradients on Monday could allow for a few showers to develop. Then into the middle of next week, increasingly we've got this blocking area of high pressure building again around Greenland and Iceland. CFS was showing absolutely no sign of that blocking area of high pressure, but the GFS really building that up by the middle of next week. Again, very slack pressure gradients for us, possibly producing a few heavy showers. Into the second half of next week, the GFS wants to turn things more unsettled then, as often happens when you've got blocking areas of high pressure in the summer. When you've got high pressure up there, you'll tend to start generating low pressure underneath it, and that's what's happening there. So by this time next week, the GFS wants to generate an area of low pressure in the North Sea and also around the Bay of Biscay. And as we go into the bank holiday weekend, those areas of low pressure just sort of get together, form a trough over the top of the country, so that brings an unsettled spell over the bank holiday weekend. We saw it just there with those precipitation spikes on the ensemble graph. That brings an unsettled spell over the weekend with showers or longer spells of rain into the bank holiday weekend. That's bank holiday Monday, that's day 10 now, Monday 27th of May. We've got low pressure sitting in the North Sea, got a big blocking area of high pressure over Greenland, and there's more low pressure waiting in the wings in the Atlantic. That wants to come this way. So that's a cool, unsettled, potentially quite showery bank holiday Monday. Not all that good at all. As we go through into a more extended range, where we do start to get a bit of a ridge building to our south. So there's some high pressure ridging in from the Azores in towards France, Spain and Portugal. That's starting to bring some real heat into southern parts of Europe. But actually for us, these areas of low pressure but just continuing to roll in. Of course, as this heat begins to build down to our south, that temperature gradient just adds a bit more fuel potentially to those areas of low pressure. That's how we finish up as we get towards the end of the GFS run, which today takes us to Sunday the 2nd of June, and looking rather showery still. No sign of any particularly big area of high pressure building in, so just rather showery and on the coolest side as well. GFS parallel run looks like that, quite showery as we go into the early part of next week, very slack pressure gradients. Then the heights are building up to the north again, reinvigoration of northern blocking as we go into the second half of next week. That takes us to the end of next week. Again, everything looking very, very slack, nothing moving through very quickly. So slow-moving weather patterns, if you like. Could be some more showers, particularly for eastern parts of the country. Bit of a northerly wind there as we go into Bank Holiday weekend, but not as unsettled with the parallel GFS run as the operational GFS run is. Actually, this is probably a relatively settled Bank Holiday weekend, albeit it's quite a cool Bank Holiday weekend, so temperatures would be disappointing. It'd be another cool Bank Holiday weekend following on from the May Day Bank Holiday weekend, but it is much less unsettled compared to the operational GFS, which is building up areas of low pressure for the Bank Holiday weekend. So still quite a lot of uncertainty actually about this late spring Bank Holiday weekend. Beyond that, the parallel GFS run starts to turn things more unsettled in the extended range. Low pressure finishing up over the top of the country as a trough within the 500 millibar flow. And you see, we never get rid of that northern blocking signal. So we still have the high pressure over Greenland, we still have high pressure over Scandinavia, and we've got a trough stuck over top of the UK at 384 hours away. Sunday, 2nd of June. That obviously will bring showers, longer spells of rain, and quite cool temperatures as well. That's 2 weeks away, though, so obviously it is really unreliable. The ECMWF looking like this, so again, I think rather slack as we begin next week. Could be some showers around, but there will also be drier periods through the early part of next week. Second half of next week, starting to run in these areas of low pressure. So the ECMWF is in agreement really with the GFS operation run. These areas of low pressure be moving in from off the Atlantic. That's bringing showers or longer spells of rain into the late spring Bank Holiday weekend. I mean, this looks really unsettled actually for the late spring Bank Holiday weekend. That's day 10. It's Monday the 27th of May. It's Bank Holiday Monday. And we've got low pressure in the North Sea. We've got a trough or some sort of feature moving into the northern part of the country. So that will bring showers or longer spells of rain. And it's really cool as well, actually. If you're following the isobars back, the air's originating from up here and moving down into the UK like that. So looks like it's either going to be cool and relatively dry, GFS parallel run, or potentially cool or very cool and unsettled with showers or longer spells of rain, GFS operational or ECM, WF operational run. Either way, it's not looking great, I have to say, for the late spring Bank Holiday weekend. And bearing in mind at this point, Day 10, Monday 27th of May, the CFS in JMA Friday is starting to generate a heat wave. The CFS is starting to generate big area of high pressure, very warm temperatures, and it keeps that going then through into the first 2 weeks of June. So there's absolutely no sign of that within the shorter range model output. It's certainly not starting in the final week of May. But of course, it could be that the CFS, a long-range model, is right with this, and it's the shorter range that's going to do the shifting over the next few days. If it is going to shift in that direction towards hotter, drier weather through the final week of May, but it's going to have to get on with it because there's very, very little sign of it at the moment. But we shall wait and see. These are the options that are on the table within the ECM ensembles today. This is from the Icelandic Met Office. These are the options that we got for day 10, which is the 27th of May, Bank Holiday Monday. So we've got 23 members of the ECM ensembles, including the control and operational runs, with low pressure sitting very close to the country, high pressure up over Greenland. So it's cool, it's showery, it's unsettled with those options. We've got 18 members of the ECM ensembles that do have more influence from high pressure, but the high pressure just happens to be kind of like just out to the west of us. So drier, yes, with that scenario, but still quite cool, bring the wind in from a north or northeasterly direction. That's kind of like what the GFS parallel run is showing. So you see that within the ECM ensembles, there is some support for that cool, dry type pattern for the late spring bank holiday weekend that the GFS parallel run was showing. And then there's 10 that have high pressure further away from us in the middle of the North Atlantic, going up to Greenland, with low pressure extending in from the east and the northeast. They're cool and unsettled again. We'll be bringing down winds from a northerly direction with those, and because we've got a trough of low pressure very close to us, they'd be unsettled too. So if you put those 10 just there, with the 23 just there, you've got 33 out of 51 members of the ECM ensembles that are looking cool and unsettled for the late spring bank holiday weekend, which isn't a particularly good trend to have. That's quite a high number, going cool and unsettled for bank holiday Monday. The 18 that are drier are also quite cool, but at least they are a drier option, so the weather would be more useful for anybody who want to get out and about. In 2 weeks' time, these are the options that we've got. This is taking us to the 1st of June. So we've got 21 members of the ECM ensembles with low pressure to the north. They'll be bringing in a westerly flow, so showery and westerly with those. There's 16 that have high pressure over top of the country. I suppose that's the CFS solution, perhaps. Low pressure is out there, and we'd be sending the jet stream northwards. So that's obviously a drier and warmer solution for the first day of June. But then there's 14 that have this deep trough over the top of the country. Obviously, that's the most unsettled option. Just really unsettled with those showers or probably persistent spells of rain, really. Bit of a blocking signal still towards Greenland as well with those 14. So clearly they're the worst in terms of being very unsettled. These 16 just here are the best. But again, if you was to put the 21 that we have just there with the 14 there, probably looks like the ECM ensembles are favouring more unsettled conditions anyway, albeit perhaps not going as bad as this option. But certainly it looks like the ECM ensembles probably favour more unsettled conditions continuing into the opening of June. Now, with all that said, let's just have a quick look at the CFS V2 700 millibar height anomaly forecast for June 2019, and it's looking very anticyclonic. This is a 700 millibar height anomaly. It's placing an area of above average heights over and just to the north of the country. That will be bringing in easterly winds, so it'll be a dry month and potentially very warm as well. Easterlies in June are going to rapidly start to warm up. Can drag in quite a lot of cloud onto the eastern side, but it can take a while to burn it away back to the coast. But easters in June, not going to be too bad. We'll produce pretty high temperatures. We saw that last year, of course. Very similar pattern, actually, to last year in terms of the 700 millibar height anomaly. You'll see how it has the above average heights there in the Atlantic, but it also extends to the ridge to the north and northeast of us. So you've got a huge area of high pressure, also backs in towards Canada, that ridge. So you've got this huge area of high pressure with the jet stream pushed off up there. That's very, very similar pattern to what we saw last summer during June and July. So it's almost like the CFS wants to repeat last summer's pattern this year. Obviously, that would lead to a hotter than average month. So the temperature anomaly of the CFS V2 significantly above average for June. And precipitation-wise, very, very close to average. No real signal, but obviously with an anticyclonic month, you'd expect quite a dry month coming up. So CFS clearly wants to go for an anticyclonic June with a lot of high pressure, very warm, dry, potentially hot conditions, not all that dissimilar to the kind of pattern that we had during June 2018, actually. Now, I'm not saying that's wrong at all. It could well be that that's correct. The only sort of caveat I've put in with that is that in the month-head look ahead, which is breaking things down into weekly periods, this all starts, if the CFS is right with this, it's going to start in the final week of May. Now, we're the 17th of May now. Day 10 is 27th of May. The final week of May will begin in around sort of 5 or 6 days' time. And looking at those shorter range model charts, there is no sign, certainly within the next 10 days, that we're going to start generating a high pressure that will produce a heat wave through early June. So I see one or two comments asking about why I think the CFS has lost the plot, because it's going for a heat wave in June. And that's not particularly the reason. The reason I think the CFS has lost the plot is because it wants to start this pattern off as early as around a week's time. And there's simply no sign of that within the short range model output. But it could be that the shorter range is wrong, and they will shift in the next day or so. They'll have to shift very quickly, but they might shift in the next day or so towards this pattern that the CFS is going for, if you see what I mean. But at the moment, the CFS doesn't appear to have a huge amount of support for its idea of a heat wave starting in the final week of May. But we shall wait and see. We never rule out any forecast until it has gone. So it's a possibility, albeit I would suggest quite a remote one at the moment. It looks as though the way things play out, certainly with up to kind of like the end of the late spring bank holiday weekend, is quite cool and unsettled. I think that's the way the shorter range is trending in the last few days. But it might shift. So let's wait and see whether it does. Obviously, we'll keep a close eye on it in the next few days. So that's it for today's videos. Busy weekend of updates coming up this weekend. So tomorrow we've got weekend forecast as well. 4 videos tomorrow. Can you believe it? We've got the weekend forecast tomorrow and a week to 10-day video update with all the usual features as well. We'll have the CFS 6 months look ahead. Know you will enjoy that one. And we'll have another bank holiday weekend update too. That's Saturday. On Sunday, we've got our final batch of the summer 2019 analogues. We'll have Galsworthy's Sunday roundup. And also on Sunday, we're going to get together the ECMWF, Metro France and DWD seasonal models and see what they're showing for the summer and even going into the autumn. So a lot of updates coming up at Galsworthy's this weekend. Do keep checking back to all of them. But that's all for now, and thanks for watching.